I am not the most best with Zoom.
Wait a minute.
But we are now. This is Chipicon, and welcome to the Changing Times, Changing Worlds Wednesday show that we still don't have a name for other than this Changing Times, Changing Worlds Wednesday show. I refuse to call it the Chipicon Hour. And we are talking tonight about the afterlife. Last week we said that wouldn't it be fun to talk about ghosts? And I said, yes, it would. And I said, oh, I need to get some ghost hunters and people who have really good ghost stories on for that. But around the kitchen table, we started talking about different views of the afterlife, because bless them, my children are very good with, have a lot of background in folklore and the occult, as we don't usually refer to it publicly, but we refer to it because it's a good thing. It's a hidden. This is why we don't talk about stuff like this, because we hide it so that nobody will be embarrassed. God forbid that somebody would be embarrassed.
You know, that just does everything.
This is going to be a show of the type that would be at Changing Times as a panel. The panel is panels are when we have a discussion among people. It's essentially designed to be, we're not having a couple of experts up at the front of the room. We're having a discussion among interested friends around it, you know, as if it were in your room. And that's what we're looking for here. So please let me know if you want to join the conversation. I got very lucky. An old friend of mine who is one of the top 100 psychics in America happens to be free for a little while. I know, but you're in books. And she's actually I've listened to some of her talk shows. She helps people with past life regressions, and as bizarre as that sounds, damn, she's good. It helps people. And isn't that the bottom line? Is if it works, go for it. That's my bottom line anyway.
Yeah, but so, I'm not one of those who thinks her aura don't stink. So, you know, let's just get that right there.
And, you know, if it's all something in the back of our minds that if it's something psychological, I don't care. It works. But just to start off, let's face it. Okay, at some point our bodies stop working. At some point, and for a lot of us, we get old, and our teeth start going, and our vision starts going, and our hearing starts going. We become a really pain in the neck to be around by our families, because we get, what did you say? And sooner or later, some part of your body gives out, and you're dead. And there you have something that is about a piece of meat that used to be someone you loved a lot, but you'd better bury it, because otherwise it's going to be really gross. And so this is a mystery. This is what happens when somebody you loved is suddenly, and then the inexplicable happens. You go to sleep and your grandmother comes and says, don't worry, dear, I will be with you always if you really need me. And you have some good conversations, which is my personal experience. My grandmother was my first major death, and she did come, and we had some great times in the dream world. But damn it, ghosts happen. In every culture I know of, people show up even after they're dead. In scholarly books, apparently the concept of purgatory was invented in the 11th century because people kept saying, well, if it's only heaven or hell, if we're going into a nebulous, we're either going to heaven or hell, depending on whether we are good or bad, the Catholic Church had to explain ghosts. So they said, purgatory, it's the in-between place. This is why you see ghosts, is because they are being purged, hence the word purgatory, of their sins so that they can eventually reach heaven. And it was there to explain ghosts because those pesky ghosts wouldn't stop showing up. Many other cultures have both ghost stories, and they have stories about the afterlife. Let's face it, the spa wives, the vulvas of the Norse world, there's the shamans of tribal cultures are able to get in touch with the other side. The line between live and dead is not a hard line. And then occasionally people remember, now this is going to be annoying for people who don't believe in reincarnation. Some people remember previous lives. In India, where it is accepted and there isn't so much mental static around it, people are, you get a lot of more examples of people who remember past lives, and then they can go over and check and say, yep, everything this 5-year-old or 3-year-old is saying is true. And it's like, oh, yep, you're my wife. I'm sorry that I left you, but I live several villages over. And okay, these are weird stories, but these things can happen. I personally don't see any reason why one would have to come back close by or as the same gender, or even as a human, or why not as a human. Personally, I think after a really awful life, I think a lifetime as a sequoia would be very restful, and all you had to do was listen to the chirping birds in your branches and worry occasionally about forest fires. I think that would be a great way to chill out after a really severe human lifetime. But we don't know. What we can do is we can talk to each other, we can look at the folklore, we can listen to and we can share what we have experienced for ourselves, and maybe get a little bit closer to what reality is. Now, Corby mentioned to me that she might not be able to stay for until 9. So I'm going to put her on the spot and say, Corby, you have talked to a lot of people and you seem to have the ability to tap into their past lives. I'm going to say also before that, it's like past lives come into what I do. I tend to be more of a healer and a diviner. And in palmistry, usually we say that your dominant hand shows what you're doing in this life, and your non-dominant hand shows your past life, what you've got behind you. It works into every aspect of occult philosophy. We have to deal with past trauma, and it sticks. So since you seem to have I'm going to ask you, I'm trying to ask a telling question, but you may have a point that you could make right off the bat? Do you have?
I have lots of points.
Yay!
Be blunt. Throw me a thing. I'll catch the thing and we'll talk.
Okay. Let's say the first thing I always think in terms of me. It's all about me. When my son grew up and he was diagnosed with autism, and I was horrified because he had the usual autistic, oh my God, I've got flinch reaction. And I said, everybody's going to think I've been beating him. And he never was struck once. And then I read about some past life stuff and said, oh, maybe he was beaten in a past life, and that's where this flinch reaction comes. Is that something that that you've seen any of? Or
Oh, sure.
I was just worried about, oh my God, the child services is going to be coming after me because it was pronounced.
One thing, autistic kids are generally indigo or crystal children. They're way high attuned. They're like us 2.0. And so their vibe is higher and they have a harder time in this loud world. We're loud with our emotions. We're loud with our thoughts. We're loud and they hurt. But why they chose to come in is, you can't understand past lives unless you look at karma, not as carrot and stick, but syllabus. Karma is 5 things as far as we understood in Rob Schwartz's books, Your Soul's Plan and Your Soul's Gift. Unbalanced energy, which is a neutral. Service, healing, contrast, you want to learn about abundance, you have to be both rich and poor, and healing of beliefs. So, for instance, the past life for myself that I know the most about is 2 lives ago when I was a pilot in World War I. I was on the German side. I was noble and I flew well and I was a hero and everybody loved me and my people, but I was anti-Semitic as hell. Everybody was in Germany then. I have a specific memory about that. Being introduced to a fellow named Wilhelm Frankl, Frankl, who was awarded the Blue Max, which was the highest award that the Kaiser could give, but he was a Jew. So when he was introduced to me, instead he had his hand out. I remember putting my hands behind my back, nodded very stiffly, clicked my boots, wouldn't touch him. Well, how better to learn about Jews are people too than to be born into a Jewish family this time, which I was. Even though from the age of 3, I always felt like I got off on the wrong bus. It was like clothing that didn't fit. Once I understood why I was there, things settled down. The other thing that I have to correct is you told people that I help with past life regression. No, there's a big difference between regression and retrieval. Regression is when you get hypnotized and you go wandering around in the Akashic looking for stuff. Retrieval is when you say to me, why do I freak out when I have wet hair in my face? I go up to the Akashic, pull down the book and say, read chapter 2. I get that past life that has something to do with what you're upset about. And for a lot of people, it's easier because if it's a tough life, you're not reliving it. You're hearing the story, but the story will make sense. See the difference? It's one of the reasons why I can do past life retrieval at a psychic fair. You never do regression at a psychic fair. Are you kidding? You want to take your clothes off in the middle of 150 people? Because that's basically what it's doing.
Well, the day is not wasted. I have learned something new. That sounds important.
It really is, because if you're going to do past life regression, you must do it with a certified hypnotherapist or a certified past life regressionist. Because if you get stuck in a life where you are gang raped and killed and they can't pull you out or they can't give you the correct suggestions, just watch it. You do not have to relive it. You're watching a play. That could be traumatic, and you could come out of that with PTSD. So if you're going to do that, you only go with someone who is licensed and knows triage, past life triage. You don't play.
Okay.
So.
Well, that sounds important, and it sounds like it also is healing, but I have to admit, I always thought it was pretty silly, and I worried about...
What part of it was silly, Chip?
Ah, I have a lot of defensiveness around how gullible I am. And since I believe in so much occult stuff, I back off from things that could be um, okay. I'm thinking about how in a lot of situations people can get suggestions
Yep.
from their therapist, like all those kids who said that they were in satanic cults in their kindergarten, their daycare situations in the 90s or 80s. And it's like, oh, that I don't want to worry. I don't want to believe in everything that somebody has been fed by somebody who's chasing something.
Not everybody who can't wear a turtleneck is Anne Boleyn. That's really where it goes. And you know, not everybody needs to know a past life. If someone just said, "Oh, tell me a past life," I'm curious. I just look at them and say, "Next psychic, honey," because are not for amusement. They're to help you work through things. The thing I said about the wet hair. I was at Lilydale years ago when Rob's books first came out, and he and I were lecturing, and I was doing what I call lightning round past life readings. I do galleries like that, the way some people do Dan Ain't Mabel. So she literally, butch short hair. She said, "I cannot stand wet hair in my face. I panic even if I'm in the shower. What's going on?" I said, "Okay." I went upstairs for about 5 seconds. I said, "Okay, 5-syllable answer, Lusitania. In 1915, you were on the boat when it was torpedoed by the Germans. And you had not bobbed your hair. You still had the big Edwardian mass. So when you were overboard, all that hair catching water, plus debris kept getting caught in it, and you drowned." She looks at me white-faced. She says, "Is that why I'm afraid of cruise ships?" I said, "Probably." Now, I knew from nothing, but that was the immediate download. And I don't care if I say you were a plaid rutabaga on a fire engine. I'm going to say that because Spirit wants you to know that for some reason or other. I don't need to understand. When I try to understand, that's my ego getting in the way. But in that case, knowing what happened healed a trauma in this life that she carried. So for then, finding a past life is important. If we're having a life challenge, parenting handicapped children, death of a loved one, poverty, incest, physical illness, addiction, and you can go back to the life challenge and see why you chose to bring that in as a life lesson, you can very often unravel it. But if you just want to see if you were anybody famous a few years back, kids, we were all saints, we were all sinners, we were all victims, we were all murderers. You were probably famous somewhere in there, but what the hell does it matter now if you're working at a dry cleaning establishment? Get a life. People that don't know, I'm sorry, I'm funny. You're just going to have to deal with the fact that I'm funny. So.
Yeah. I think that may have something to do with your popularity.
I take my work very seriously, me not so much. That's basically how it goes.
Yeah. Well, nobody's going to want to. I've got somebody else has something to Janine. Have I unmuted you?
Yes. Awesome. Hey,
did you have something to throw in?
A couple of things. I've had many remembrances of past lives, and when I started sharing that with some people, they kind of would tip their head at me. So I started using the phrase, "the story I tell myself about myself," because it is a story, right? And whether it's genetic memory or a past life, I have this knowing about myself. That I've remembered a few different lifetimes, like flashes of moments that have really played into my life in the way I live my life, really. And one of them is a relationship between my daughter and myself. So I was German in World War II doing magic with the Third Reich. is a
Oh,
story.
you lucky woman. All right.
Yeah, but I thought I was doing the work for my people, right? I thought I was doing something to help my people. So I chose, I'm here for many reasons, but my daughter, we both believe, was an older Jewish grandmother who died in Auschwitz, and that we were put together to heal wounds, So, and she did grow me up really good, my daughter. She's a very old soul. So that's one of the stories in my life that has to do with my previous life. It also explains I wasn't allowed, like energetically, to learn any ceremonial magic till later in my life. I've also been very humbled in this life, like you. I didn't understand why I ended up with the family I did, but other things. And one thing, I had this experience of waking up in the middle of the night and hearing the word bodhisattva, meaning a soul that chose to come back. So that made a lot of sense to me about me. Yes. So, and dealing with dead people, my dead ex-husband, today is the day he passed 18 years ago. Ghosts are with us all the time. I have deep relationships with beings that aren't corporeal. Yeah. So I just wanted to share those tidbits. Thank you.
Anyone else in the audience have anything they want to say, or wave your hand? And no. Okay, well then I'm going to share a theory, which you can all then come in and say, I think you're full of it, or you can say, oh, that's interesting, I'm going to have to think about that. I believe not in reincarnation, but in simultaneous multiple incarnations. I think we have souls, and that when they grow through our experiences, they get bigger and bigger, and they're like amoebas, they split. And each of those souls then go off and have different lives. And so they have different experiences, but they contain the back energies of all the previous lives that they lived in before. And when your soul has lived enough and grown enough, it splits. And so we may actually be part of the same soul at some point. And I think we might incarnate together in order to learn things, but I see no reason why I couldn't be simultaneously a kid in 8th century Peru, somebody in in Norway. And I think we tend to come back to the same place often because it's convenient, or it's like reading the next chapter of the book and we think it will be more comfortable. I think we do, while on the other side, have contact with the other people that we love, the many, many other people we love, and I don't think that we're any smarter on the other side. I think we have access to other information, but I don't think we're smarter. And I think we may make some dumb choices and say, I want to be with him in that lifetime, so I'm going to go live there. And then wake up and find out that you've just incarnated as a baby at Love Canal and have a lot of birth defects that you just didn't think to look at that. Wouldn't you think an oversoul would have said, no. But maybe your oversoul said, they need to learn that lesson. Or B, you look like you've got something.
Yeah, because this is a lot of the work we did. You have a pre-birth planning session. Now, you talk about time as a web, not a line. So yes, you can be in all kinds of places. Technically, all of our incarnations are at once. But remember, if someone says we only live once, they're right. And if someone says we always reincarnate, they're right too. And the example I use is Matt Smith. He was the 11th Doctor. He was also Prince Philip in The Crown. Those are your incarnations. The soul is Matt Smith. 1 down into the 2. People get that. You're not going to have something like birth defects or autism or gang rape or mental illness without planning it first. Because remember, you ain't doing it. You are a part. You're a coat that your soul wears. And if it says, I want to learn this, yeah, you may have a really sucky life, but the personality is the one that's bitching. The soul thinks, put a little extra on that plate, but I'm going to have a lot of new stuff to work with. We have to acknowledge that. And yes, we choose people. In my life, this time, my father was my best friend. Had to have that because of the stuff I was dealing with my mother. In most lives, he and I are same generation and best friends there. I usually get led through the death experience by him, whether we're soldiers or whatever. This time, he came in older. Interestingly, we have the same birthday. And he, of course, died before I did. And so I used to tell him, Dad, trust me, you're going to get upstairs, sign the guest register, unpack your bags, and we'll talk. 3 weeks after he died, we did. Showed up in my living room. So we do hang out with the same people. They won't necessarily be doing the same stuff. They will rarely be the same gender. We pop back and forth with that all the time. But no matter how bad your life looks, blame your higher self, blame your oversoul, because they set lessons for you to learn. I came down here needing, since I'm usually mostly male, in a female body, I had to learn how to deal with it, how to honor the female body, blah, 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 blah. And there's a lot of stuff I was too stupid to learn, which is why I got cancer 3 times. 3rd time was a second primary. And Spirit said, look, we need you down there to do your work. So we're going to remove the problem. Double mastectomy took me from a Dolly Parton figure to a fire plug. And all of a sudden, all that mattered was my work. What I looked like didn't work anymore. Was I bad so I got cancer? No, it was a tool. Everything is a neutral. Does that make sense?
It makes sense to me. It probably makes less sense to somebody who's in the midst of dealing with cancer, or that if you're ducking from it, it's very hard to say, I signed up for this, unless you're ready to learn the lesson.
But it's not that you were bad. You're a courageous soul. You chose a tough lesson.
Yeah.
But I wanted the fact
But we all have those friends that we see them going through their lives and saying, gosh, I wish they would learn to forgive their mother, and then, or whatever it is, and their lives would be so much easier. And
I have an important mantra for you for that, my love. Not
what's that?
circus, not my monkeys.
I love that one.
Not my
Of course,
circus, not my monkeys. Because it's their lesson.
up the since Jane and I started the Changing Times, Changing Worlds, and went into it saying, I'm going to pass it on to it so that it will be our con instead of my con.
Mm-hmm.
I say that a lot. It's like, this is not my circus. However, this is something I love a lot. I love being able to talk to other people who don't look at you funny when you talk about talking to your dead grandmother.
Yep, I get it.
It's a great joy to be able to speak to people who don't think you're crazy when you say, well, yeah, of course I douse. How else are you going to find the things that are lost around the house? I was like, well, of course, look in your hand and you can see where it's written there in the palmistry. You learn this stuff, and there's only one reason for it being here, because it's useful, it helps. And I love it. I love learning this stuff. I like teaching it to other people so they can get through their lives better. That's the one thing that I worry. I look and I say, oh my gosh, am I a narcissist? And it's like, no, I don't hoard information. I push it on people. It's like, oh, you got to learn this new thing. I have many narcissistic tendencies. But yeah, there's so many forms of afterlife, and the entire philosophy, a lot of these things work with each other. I've studied vampires. Why is it that Greek ghosts become stronger when the blood is spilled so that they can get it, because they're, in order to manifest so that the living person can see them, who may not be particularly psychic, they need life energy. You know, all of it works together, which is why I study everything and drive my kids crazy. Like, mother, we don't need to hear all this. I'm seeing nodding here. I guess other people drive their kids crazy too. But are there any questions that we need to that people want to ask? Let's see. Are you muted? Let me unmute you. Unmute. Yeah. Hezekiah?
Hezekiah?
Hezekiah. I have such a hard time with that.
I know, that's okay. So I had a question a few minutes ago. Let me see if I can retrace my thoughts to ask it correctly. If souls regenerate or get reincarnated, then how do you know if you're actually talking with your loved one, or if there's an imposter situation going on, or does that make sense?
I'm going to be quick and then turn it over to, I'd say trust your gut. Corby, do you have a better system?
Don't look for them to say, don't go to a meeting and say, if he doesn't remember that he used to call me Pookie Pumpkin in 3rd grade, it's not Dad. I mean, I go by the energy feeling, the energy signature. Now, are we talking about talking to our own dead people or when we're mediums? Different thing.
Talking to our own dead people.
Okay, talking to our own dead people. I hear them in a certain place in my head. It is a different place that, when we're thinking, did I remember the keys in the grocery? No, that's it, kind of in the middle. My dead people talk to me over here. And the one that I talk to most often, of course, is my dad. And there is always a suffused feeling of complete love, complete compassion. Remember, like Dad's been dead since a week before 9/11. He's in his full soul self. He's hung up the Jerry Dorkin coat in the back closet. But in order to talk to me, because he knows it gives me comfort, he puts the Jerry Dorkin coat back on. So when we're talking to our people, especially if they've been up there a while, we're talking in their full soul selves. They may not feel exactly the way they did down here because they have, if you will, grown up and got rid of the neuroses. You're going to get that more often when they've just gone over and they haven't adjusted yet. It's one of the reasons when people want to talk to their dead people, I kind of try to tell them, give them 90 days so that they can adjust to being up there.
Well,
Right.
My specific dead person has been dead for a very long time. And unfortunately, as a teenager, I asked them to stop because I wasn't emotionally handling it very well. And now I can't get him back. But other things have been, I have some kind of an imposter issue going on because it's not the person I want to talk to.
Okay.
It doesn't feel calm and comforting like it should.
Are you any good at dismissing them?
Yeah, but unfortunately, I can't get them back once I dismiss them like I did with the one that I want to talk to. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but what I would say is, number one, your dead person, if they've been dead a long time, may have moved on, may have taken you at your word. It's like we may remember our 3rd grade teacher fondly, but we always don't go back and sit in our seat at Kramer Elementary if they want to talk to us. And so that you may not get that person except on the astral. It is what it is. I've talked to Dad, haven't talked to Mom more than I think once, and she died in '84. So my concern though is that the imposter that you don't want around, how to keep them out. And
I do.
What's up? Good. They're not fun.
I'm constantly throwing up blocks.
Okay.
Yeah, I do wonder sometimes about mediums. I don't medium. It's not something I do. Apparently, I can tell them to get the hell out of here, go where they belong, and they go, because mediums I've worked with tell me that. But I have no perception of them, which is why I work with mediums. But I haven't spoken. As I said, I spoke to my grandmother, which was really wonderful. I have never spoken to my husband, who I adored and I think was it's true love. But my feeling is he was an active person. He was an active spirit. He's going to go off. He's going to be in the middle of something. I'm not going to bug him. It's like I'm not going to chase my grandmother. If I knew them, my grandmothers, when they were alive, and if I had come and tried to interrupt a discussion they were having with their friends, I would have been told to be quiet and wait until they were ready to speak to me. And I kind of feel the same way about a lot of mediums. Why are you pestering these dead people when they're happy? Unless they're hanging around waiting, like the ghosts in Whoopi Goldberg's thing in Ghost.
No.
You gotta, leave them alone. They're busy. They're happy. They've got a life or many lives or whatever. They'll find you if they want you.
Well,
am I wrong?
Sometimes they need closure, but the way I do it is if you come and you want to talk to Aunt Susie, we'll talk to Aunt Susie if she's by the phone. But if you come back to me every year and you want to talk to Susie again, I'm going to be like a good bartender and cut you off. She does not need to talk to you. The reason I talk to my father more frequently is when I do medical intuitive stuff. Dad was an internist cardiologist. He helps. He does consults.
And he signed up for that.
Probably one of the reasons we were born on the same day. We were very much simpatico. So, but how people do dead people is also very different. I am not one of the ones that just reaches into the ether and says, I see a woman in a flower dress hanging you a rose, it's your grandmother. Oh, can I vomit now? No. I get their dog tags. My father, Jerome Richard Dorkin, who died in 2001 at the age of 80, gets me right into the energy. I'll give you things that you go, yep, that has to be Uncle Jerry. Then I'll open up the door and you can talk to them directly, have conversations with them. That's what I do. But it's why I don't do it in public, because I do not censor what comes out of the mouth. Remember how you were, I think it was either you or someone I was talking to, how do you know it isn't really you saying things? Okay, true story. Biracial same-gender couple. The black partner had died. Her white widow wanted to speak to her. Now, I grew up a nice Jewish kid in Cherry Hill, New Jersey. I have manners. What comes floating out of my mouth in flawless urban ebonics was, well, shit, it ain't my white bitch. And I'm going, no! And the woman is davening and crying and laughing because that's how her partner walked in after business trips every night. Come home from New York, boom. Yeah, you can't do that. Television, radio, or on stage. Not with this face. So, but in a private kind of thing, yes, and it brought her closure. That is to me why when I do live readings and things, I will not do mediumship, because that is meant for healing, that is meant for completion, and it shouldn't be anybody's audience. I don't care if I get a guy in khaki shorts with a Hawaiian shirt and a hole in his sneaker and his name starts with M. Please. Sorry, off my soapbox.
No, this is the kind of thing that makes me dubious. The people who do that, I hate to say that they're faking it. I don't think they do, but they're getting something. Whether they're getting, it's like when you use a Ouija board, I think it's like ringing a payphone back in the days when they had payphones, and you're most likely to get the good Jewish girl throwing up the cross. I think you're most likely to get some bozo on the street corner who has nothing better to do
Yes.
and just wants to mess with you.
Yes. Using a Ouija board when you don't know how to ground, center, and shield is like throwing open your door in a strange neighborhood and yelling free beer. You do not know who was out there, but they heard you and they're coming.
Yeah.
And for everybody who gets Abraham and Emmanuel, I have had to handle 2 hysterical teenagers who, when they grabbed their Ouija board and put their hands on the planchette and said, "Who's here?" without any grounding and shielding, what was said was, spelled backwards, "I have an axe and I'm here to kill you." That's not their Uncle Danny.
No, it's somebody who says, "Oh, we got one. Let's have some fun with it."
Yeah, they hang out at the corner of Akashic and Karma and say, "Hey, Sid, we got a live one." And the other thing, when people say, "Oh, but it's in the toy department, how difficult, how terrible can it be?" Always comes up at one of my lectures. I say, "Who has a kid or a grandkid under 10? Hands go up." "All right, you." His name is Billy and he's 6. I said, "Fine." Billy says to you, "I got all A's on my report card and you promised I could have any toy I wanted." And he drags you to the toy department and points out my first chainsaw. It's in the toy department. Go to let him play with it by himself? I don't think so. Just because it's in the toy department doesn't mean it's a toy. It's a doorway. Don't screw with them. Somebody
No
said,
kidding. That bell was just my computer saying you've got 15 minutes left.
"Oh, all right."
So, yeah, but there are many ways of looking at it. I always liked the TV show Medium because that had wonderful characters who showed it's really not pleasant to have people tap you as, "Oh, she's a psychic." It's like, no. And your kids are doing, oh, my poor kids, I'm so sorry. Yes, we can deal with this, kids. This is how I've dealt with it. But the father-in-law that just kept coming in and said, "Don't you come in the bathroom." The whole idea of dead people coming to watch over you is like, haven't they got something better to do?
Yes, they do.
Maybe some of them do. Certainly a lot of mediums indicate that they do. But the people I want to hang out with are not the people who would sit around and be voyeurs. I don't think.
Hessia has something to say, I think. I saw
Yeah, I had one more question because I couldn't get on earlier and I came in halfway through. And you were talking about having lived in multiple lives. Are there just brand new souls that didn't have a past life?
Not at this point. Maybe during the Big Bang. But we have, and this is something I understand from Michael, the causal entity, not the archangel. Infant, baby, young, mature, old, transcendent.
Bless you.
Never less than 3, never more than 9. Been like that since I was a kid. No, I haven't got the coronavirus. No. Maybe non-human souls, sure, but not human, because Earth is rather a tough school, especially going through the Michigas we're going through now. I don't think this is a place for young souls. Only place might be what I call a touch and go. Kid's born, he lives for 3 days and dies, because he's not formed right. So they can feel what it's like to be in a body. But for an actual doing things life, no, it's too complicated down here, I would think.
Okay.
I'm going back. Was that 4 stages? Because 4 means somebody's in love with you. It's 5. Okay. I don't folklore. It's one of my things.
5 means my Maine Coons are shedding, is what it means. I mean,
yeah. Sometimes the cigar is just a cigar.
Yes.
And I think that my personal feeling is, okay, when a DC is called up, have you ever noticed in the stories when they call up, when somebody is trying to raise the dead, was it Saul went to the witch of Endor to raise Samuel, and Odysseus wanted to raise Tiresias, and Odin went and he wanted to raise Evolve. Everybody goes to raise somebody who was friggin' psychic that they knew, and they said, oh, I need psychic advice. Let me go raise a psychic ghost. Like, why don't you go to a living psychic person, bozo?
Supposedly ghosts know more.
Yeah, but it seems to go across a lot of cultures that people who want to raise the dead are usually after something.
Yes.
Usually after advice, which I suppose is why people go to psychic fairs today.
Or reassurance. I want to make sure that Ann Hazel is okay with the fact that, we're selling her house. They don't care. I mean, don't forget, when you cross over, not only are you going to hang out with Uncle Harold, Uncle Irving, Aunt Evelyn, Cousin Joanne, but all the people you ever knew in other incarnations are there. Because you slip off the coat and you're there for everybody. So no, my mother is not forever playing Mahjong with Evelyn Roseman, Dolly Kornfeld, and Sarah Berner. She's just not. And to think she is a disservice to her poor soul.
Yeah, I think so. But does anybody else have any questions that they, or any ideas or any personal experiences that they'd had? Because that's the cool part of getting a bunch of people together like this. Because I think there just are so many, we are going to be doing another show about ghosts because I want to bring in people who chase ghosts. I'm not entirely, I'm not going to address that because I want somebody else to, because personally I think chasing ghosts is kind of rude. Sometimes if they are mentally ill, you need to get them to move on. But I think usually talking to dead people, like Raymond Moody's work, God, I'd love to have him on, with his psychomantium and his ability to get people in touch with the people that they need closure with. I think especially in the modern world, and my God, what may be happening with the virus when people, not only can they not see their loved ones while they're sick, they can't even have funerals for them. We're going to have a lot of distressed spirits desperately looking for closure and desperately trying to get in touch with each other. And our culture does not train people how to do that. Our culture is not good at helping people know that. I hate to say, I don't want to blame the monotheism, the Christianity, Judaism, it's like, okay, you're going to have somebody do that for you. I think Judaism, not so much. They don't have a rabbi is not the same thing as a priest or an imam. They aren't handling all your spiritual shit for you. And you can tell me if I'm wrong on that one. I don't have enough Jewish friends.
They're the wisest person. They're the wisest person. Rabbi, what do I do? Well, that's what they are. I mean, yeah. they don't transubstantiate the matzah.
They're the community. If you need some advice, go to them.
Yes, exactly.
Yep. And that's nice, but a lot of the Christianity teaching is, oh, well, you don't do that. If there's anything spiritual, the priest is going to handle it. And of course, the scientific, that's not real. Which I will tell you, in my 60-some years, and I started when I was about 15, asking total strangers, has anything happen to you that you don't tell anybody else? See, because a total stranger is more likely to be honest because they'll never see you again, and I never had somebody say no. Everybody had a story to tell me about seeing a ghost, experiencing a healing. The car mechanic who's in their backyard where they have 40 junk cars, occasionally the lights will suddenly turn on and the engine will start when there's nobody in it, and they go up there and there's nobody there, and okay, Christine. I have never met anybody who hasn't had a psychic experience, but they all friggin' keep it to themselves. We are not doing ourselves a great service to tell people this stuff isn't real. And I wanted to call Changing Times, Changing World, this shit is real con, but we thought it would offend people. So
Some people cannot handle it. You know, my brother still tells people I'm an inspirational speaker.
well, you are.
But he will not admit his sister is a psychic. He will not admit that I'm in books as a psychic or have written books as a psychic. And I think it's because he's too angry at God. I get to talk to Dad. We both hero worship my father. Dad's never spoken to him. He doesn't want to believe what he doesn't get to experience.
Yeah, that's, and you can't get your father to go over and, is he got blocks?
I've been tried.
He's got blocks like this that he can't get in.
Yeah.
Well, he's going to have a surprise when he wakes up dead.
Mm-hmm.
And your father's going to do this thing, you know. So,
Well, hopefully, you know, I will not have to be the one to channel my brother. Thank you very much. So.
But anyway, I'm going to ask if, yeah, oh, Denise, yes.
Hey, so I had this experience with my daughter's father, and he offered to hang around and assist me. But what I've witnessed with him is he has changed from what I would have called a ghost, like more human, and he has gotten bigger and less like who he was on this plane, but it's still the same person, to use that phrase. Can you tell me a bit about that?
Me or her?
Corby.
I say coming into himself. Corby, you might.
Perfect example. Y'all didn't know me 40 years ago. This woman did. There are certain parts about me that are still the same. The slightly bigger than life, theatrical, but the paranoid political ice bitch that I was is completely gone. So that is a human example of growing past your blocks. What I understand, if you will, hell to be, is brilliant in defending your life with Albert Brooks and Meryl Streep. You go up there and you have to see everything you did. You feel the joy other people felt. You feel the rage other people felt at you, what you did. And sometimes that can be absolutely hell. But when it's done, it's done. Lucifer Morningstar notwithstanding, there is no hell, except for that moment. Why would you hang on to your anxiety, your depression, your anger, your resentment once you've learned the lesson? So all of that goes in the rubbish tip. And you are left with all of the love and compassion and humor and kindness and deep listening that was there with all of the anxiety and the depression, et cetera, et cetera. So it feels like the person, but it's bigger and it's not as convoluted is, I guess, the best word. That makes sense?
So how do the traumas come across in the next lifetime?
The pre-birth planning session with the guides on the higher self, he said, well, what do you want to learn this time? The immediate life before this one, screwed around with my husband's best friend while he was on the road, had a baby. It was stillborn. I had childbed fever. I was a Catholic in a Catholic hospital in Chicago. The nuns decided, well, then let's just let her die in pain, filth, and agony because that will make up for what she did. And you wonder why in this life I knew when I was 13, I did not want to have a baby because babies kill you. Where did I get that? Upstairs. Have never minded not having kids. Maybe I'll have them next time. But for this time, I healed that fear by seeing that I could be fine without kids and live a full life.
There are a lot of women who really need to know that they're full without having kids.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Anyway, we are now come to the end of the hour. And I'm going to tell people I'm not sure that it's next week's going to be ghosts, but it may be. Thank you all for coming and sharing. And I'm going to, okay, I'm going to ask Corby, it's okay if we put this up on YouTube?
Yeah.
Okay, well, usually most people, I don't want to do that, but your name is your income.
I have a YouTube channel. Can I cross put it on mine?
Of course.
Then fine.
Wonderful. I just wanted to ask that before, if I'd figured out how I would have asked it afterward, but thank you all. Come to other shows, tell your friends about the Wednesday shows and tell your, and if you think they'd be interested, and tell them about the conference, which is going to be a lot more of this in November, a whole week of this stuff in November. So thank you all, and I'm going to end it now.
Thanks, guys.
Be good to each other. Stay safe. Stay safe. We're going to get through this. We learn the lessons that we're being handed. We chose this. We'll find out why when we're dead.
You want to wash your hands.
Wash your hands, yes. Okay, bye-bye.